Just months after Thomas Massie shattered primary election records with a $37 million contest in Kentucky, a primary in Michigan's now setting Democratic primary records with $60 million spent, according to the Federal Election Commission. What similarity, other than record-setting attempts by outsiders to influence the outcome, do these races share? Why, it's the very same lobbyists back at work to prevent any change in the status quo on the Israel issue. And the Democratic Party establishment is in lockstep behind Israel every step of the way. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, a critic of Israel, leads in the polls ahead of Tuesday's vote. Dr. El-Sayed is the next pelt that AIPAC hopes to tack up next to Congressman Massie's for daring attempt to break the pro-Israel status quo. In the U.S. Senate of all places. Dr. El-Sayed's opponent is Representative Haley Stevens. She is known to publicly say things like, "I will continue to fight for the people of Israel. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I see Israel's future, and I know that Israel will continue to exist for the Jewish people." She's not even Jewish. She just loves Israel that much. I try to think, are there any other countries that people advocate so passionately for, even when they share no cultural or even religious link with that nation? Have you heard of the tiny nation of Andorra, tucked between France and Spain in the Pyrenees? It's a little smaller than Israel, but can you imagine a person running for U.S. Senate saying, "Andorra comes to me in my dreams. I see Andorra's future"? Our country is so weird that voters are expected to not even blink when someone running for election to the American government so nakedly prioritizes another nation, even to the point where the candidate says those words to try and win over American voters. Asked about why Israel is such a central issue in this campaign, Dr. El-Sayed says, when a $30 million super PAC spend is being dropped on your face by an organization whose key interest is something happening over there, then it would be ridiculous not to name it. AIPAC is the biggest spender in this race by far, and that's pretty insane. And they're not spending to keep our money here, they're spending to send our money there. Why is this race worth so much to the pro-Israel lobby? El-Sayed continued, "If I prove that you can win statewide taking on AIPAC and winning, that is catastrophic because of what it says about the future of the party." Where does the center of gravity sit within the Democratic Party establishment? Follow the money. Congressman Stevens has the support of Senator Chuck Schumer and a long list of Michigan establishment Democrats like Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The Democratic establishment is firmly behind Stevens and firmly behind Israel. As always, establishment Democrats are quick to point to concerns of electability. The chief claim they make is that Stevens can attract outside money, support, to compete with Republican Mike Rogers, running unopposed for the Republican nomination. One poll shows Stevens neck and neck with Rogers, while Rogers runs a strong 7-point lead against Dr. El-Sayed. This is allegedly all the proof one needs to see that Stevens has what it takes to beat Rogers in the general election. Of course, this neglects the fact that Mike Rogers is also pro-Israel. As Rogers told Punchbowl News in 2025, it is very short-sighted and politically naive to walk in and say we're not going to allow Israel to defend itself. Let's not forget that both major parties have complete fealty to Israel. By eliminating Dr. El-Sayed, the pro-Israel lobby removes the threat of a vital new critical voice in the U.S. Senate. This is why it is worth $60 million and counting for them to spend on a single race. The similarities with Congressman Thomas Massie's primary defeat back in May are obvious. Another record primary where pro-Israel forces combined to protect the status quo. That time it was inside the Republican Party. By the by, Benjamin Netanyahu just visited the United States to grieve GOP pro-Israel zealot Lindsey Graham. There is no daylight between the two major parties on the Israel issue. I am reminded of the domino effect. Foreign policy orthodoxy back in the 1950s and 60s said that if Vietnam was allowed to fall to the communists as China had, that Indonesia or the Philippines or even Japan could also fall in quick succession. What many miss about domino theory is the tacit admission that communism is highly contagious because it is also highly popular. Land reform and debt jubilee and increased access to free education and healthcare are all actually really popular. Israel is in a similar domino effect situation. If candidates for the U.S. House and Senate can win even one seat against the pro-Israel lobby's overwhelming financial advantage and domination of mass media airwaves, how long before the next domino falls? And the next, and the next. Because, it turns out, standing against genocide is overwhelmingly popular, not to mention morally just. Enabling genocide is a losing issue. It's time the Democratic establishment starts learning that lesson. If you're in Michigan, vote for Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. Please give a like, follow, favorite, repost, and sign up for my Substack, the only way to avoid suppression of my material. Let's make them pay.